What is good, my ghouls and goblins? Welcome back to another episode of your weekly live streaming horror movie podcast, Reely Scared. My name is Taylor, and I'm always your guide on this journey, but I'm never alone. No. I'm always joined by the top goblin to my right here. How you doing, Connor?
Doing good. Another great Thursday.
Another great Thursday. I detect the sense of sarcasm in your voice. Am I correct in that?
No. Thursdays are
Great.
always the best day of the week.
Why is that?
It's because we do Really Scared on Thursdays.
Hell yeah. Good answer. Welcome to Reely Scared. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We've got a great show. Really excited. Been looking forward to this one. This is the second episode of our new 2021 format where every single week we bring on a special guest and we discuss a horror film of their choice. Last week we talked about Baskin with Video Drew, the gruesome and horrifying Baskin. I'm still recovering from the things I'd seen and the things we talked about last week contained in Baskin. But this week got something a little bit different. We'll be talking about Let's Kill Uncle, a William Castle film from 1966. Two very different films.
Yeah, this is like on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, which I think is part of what makes me so excited about this new kind of angle we're coming at this show at this year, because it's like you quite literally have no idea what you're going to get. It's so interesting to see what people pick when you prompt them. Pick a horror movie, any horror movie. We got my man Chris Anthony Lopez in the chat. He loves Thursdays. We're really scared. We love Thursdays with you, Chris Anthony Lopez. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching and listening. We love you. Before we get started, before we bring the beast, William Bibbiani, in here and talk to him about Let's Kill Uncle, always got to do a little housekeeping. You know what it is. The best ways to support this show. Connor, what's a great way to support Really Scared?
You can watch us on Twitch. It's pretty cool. I mean, we reached affiliate status, but now the next step is to get to partner. So just keep climbing. So check us out on Twitch. And then you can also support us by supporting our sponsor.
That's right.
WretchedApparel.com.
WretchedApparel.com, baby. A great new small business specializing in horror movie themed apparel. You can find them over at WretchedApparel.com. And when you check out, use our promo code Reely Scared, all one word. Not only do you support a great small business, but you support your favorite horror movie show, and you get 10% off your purchase. Everybody wins. That's amazing. Not often in life that everybody gets to win. In this circumstance, everybody gets to win. Yes, make sure you follow on Twitch. You get to subscribe on Twitch before long once we finish up setting up our affiliate status. Very excited about that. And, of course, make sure you rate and review whatever you can do on whichever podcast service you listen to us on. If you don't tune in live, you listen after the fact. We love that just as much, and we would love to see some new ratings, some new reviews over on the podcast platform. So please show up for you guys. Got favorite ghoul in the chat. Who is that? Borders? Oh, Beardless. Who's the beardless guy on the left? Yes.
I was like, did you get a new job at Borders?
That'd be pretty incredible if I somehow
Borders still around.
Found a Borders left in this country and started working there. That'd be a good bit. I'd be up for that. Get at me, Borders books. Yes, no, Jessica hadn't seen that I had shaved yet. I did that last night, and she has not seen me since last night. So, yeah, I was telling Connor before the show started, I got a little too liberal on the trim guard. Went a little too far, and you gotta commit sometimes when you go a little too far, or else you're gonna look like a real fool with different beard lengths. So, I'm very sad to see the beard go. I'm sorry, it's gonna come back. It wasn't its time. It went for its time.
They grow back.
They do grow back, and this one will. I just got a little too antsy with the clippers there last night. So my mistake. I'm very sorry. I'm going to work to the best of my ability to get it back as soon as possible. Yes. All right. We've got the housekeeping out of the way. Why don't we get into the fun stuff? Get into the meaty stuff, the meat and potatoes, covered in mushroom sauce tonight. Why don't we bring our man in here, our special guest? You may know him as the Beast. You may know him from the movie Trivia Schmodown. He is, of course, the one and the only, the wonderful William Bibbiani. How you doing, friend?
Hi, everybody. You're all nice.
You're nice. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I love talking horror. I don't get enough opportunities in my day-to-day life. I keep trying to engineer opportunities, and then we always end up doing something like talking about Star Trek instead. So this is really exciting. I'm super stoked, and I get to talk about my favorite genre in the whole wide world.
Hell yeah. We're totally subject to that on this channel, too. This show has been hijacked by Star Wars conversations one too many times, but we've got other shows for that. This is our special place, our special island where we can talk about the weird stuff, the creepy stuff, spooky stuff. That's what we love.
Covered in tarantulas and toadstools.
Yes. These are all just non-specific examples. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for picking this film out. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's going to be the first time we've ever talked about William Castle at length on this show. This is a great opportunity. I think this is also probably the oldest film we've discussed on this show. The last year we spent all covering like new release films, so we definitely have not ventured back into the 60s too often on Reely Scared.
That's one of the things that made me really excited when you said I could pick anything. I find oftentimes when we're writing in this industry or we're podcasting, or we're doing YouTube shows, we spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time talking about what's new, or maybe what's recent, or what's from the childhood of the majority of our audience, people who are often in their 20s and 30s. And we don't always have an opportunity to go back further than that and remind people that there's more to classic horror than just the 20 films everybody knows about. It's not just Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Nosferatu. There's actually this whole wild, weird world of horror, some of which is, has a cult, some of which is relatively obscure. And I had an opportunity to talk about a film I only recently discovered myself and absolutely fell head over heels for. Oh, interesting. So this isn't something that you'd seen way back. This is a new discovery for you. No, this was brand new. So Christmas came, as it often does, at the end of December, usually on or around the 25th. And my wife and partner, Michelle, who, in addition to being totally awesome, is also a totally awesome horror author. Her new vigilante / serial killer pro-queer, pro-sex work, feminist horror novel Hooker just came out last year. She knows what she's talking about. This was a movie that she was a huge fan of, and she actually got it for Christmas. This is a movie she'd been looking for a while. Kino Lorber released it on Blu-ray not that long ago. And so she was like, oh my God, I got Let's Kill Uncle. And I'm like, cool, what is that? And she's like, I know what we're doing Christmas night. And so we watched this movie this Christmas. And at first I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then once Nigel Green shows up in this movie and kicks it into high gear, I'm like, this is one of the best movies. I love this movie. If I had seen this movie as a kid, this would be one of my very favorite films. And even as an adult, it's one of my new favorite films. So I was cool because I've been doing this for a while. I've been studying horror for a while. I've been a film critic professional film critic for about 10 years now. And there's still stuff I'm discovering, and I get if I haven't heard of it, there's a decent chance a lot of other people haven't. So I have an opportunity to help spread the gospel of Let's Kill Uncle.
You have kind of unearthed this treasure, because not only had I not seen this prior to doing this episode, but I don't think I'd ever even maybe I briefly heard it in passing, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what it was about or when it came out or who directed it or anything like that.
Yeah, William Castle is a filmmaker who I'm actually not as familiar with as I'd like to be, and it's actually one of my goals this year is to catch up on his filmography, because he did a variety of films that do have a lot of cultural clout, a lot of them thanks in part to the Dark Castle remakes, stuff like 13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill. And of course, everyone knows he was the master of movie gimmickry and would pepper all of his releases with a wonderful, reason to show up in the theater. Like, oh, come and you'll get a cardboard axe, or skeletons will fly from behind the camera. But he's a very prolific filmmaker, and I hadn't seen everything he'd ever done. And it's really cool to know that, just because they're not a famous movie from a famous director, that they're still potentially really, really great. So when I saw Let's Kill Uncle on, I'm like, okay, I need to see everything William Castle ever did, because apparently just cherry picking the highlights isn't going to be good enough for this guy. He's clearly a bigger genius than I thought. And even the films that people consider like kind of a weird misfire or kind of like, you know, subpar for him are absolutely brilliant. I need to dedicate my life to more William Castle.
Yeah. This is kind of, if I'm correct, sort of later entry into his filmography. I think this is when he gets kind of past all the very gimmicky release stunts and things, which is the shame. I would love to have seen what bizarre like release tie-in stunt you could have done.
I'm imagining like there would be like a dunking pool in the theater with a shark in it, maybe, or like fake tarantulas that'll like fall on the audience. That might be fun too. Or even just, hey, we're making mushrooms in the lobby. We dare you to eat it.
Right. Yeah, the theater could. Here's a ticket if the theater spontaneously bursts into flames at any moment to get your refund, things like that. Yeah.
Here's your passport to Switzerland. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We promised the theater in Switzerland.
Yeah, for those who don't know or aren't very familiar with William Castle, that's definitely like probably the most prolific thing when you think of like his reputation and his legacy. He was sort of the master of these big gimmicky release stunts where like House on Haunted Hill skeletons would drop from the ceiling, or he would issue like a life insurance policy at the entryway in case you died of fright. Special 3D glasses where you could see ghosts in the film, like just these bizarre, very like sort of smell-o-vision-y type.
He was a hustler, and that's something that I think everyone mostly knows. If you know about William Castle, you probably know that like when The Tingler came out, he put like joy buzzers in random seats in the theater so that in the scene where the monster that attaches itself to your spine and like causes it to vibrate, and the only way to survive is to scream. When the lights go out and they say the Tingler's loose in the theaters, they would hit a joy buzzer in various seats in the theater, go, and you go, oh no, the Tingler is attacking. And a lot of people love that about him, and that's a truly wonderful thing. But what I think people sometimes forget is he's also a good director, and he had a good sense of humor, and he knew what he was doing. I think 13 Ghosts, his version of 13 Ghosts, is one of the very best haunted house movies. It is just devilishly clever. The visual effects are really astounding for the time. It's corny, but in a very, intentional wink at the audience kind of way, but in a way that doesn't ruin the supernatural scare value. It's just a really good movie. And that's the thing. He tells great campfire stories. He didn't really apologize for it. So I'm really, really admire like what he was doing. And I realized very recently that I just haven't seen enough of his work. So as much as like I was thinking about it as I was like, I had second thoughts today about the movie I picked. I'm like, should I have picked a William Castle film when I haven't seen every William Castle film? Because if you know, like what I do on my podcast, I'm big on context. I like to watch everything. We have a podcast right now where we're watching literally every single Star Trek ever made, and we're doing one podcast per.
Oh my gosh!
Because we want to be thorough.
Yeah.
We did a podcast where we were doing every single entry in long running franchises and things in order to truly get the grand overview of something. And I realized that, no, I'm just going to talk about what I'm excited about today. And lately, the horror movie I'm most excited about is Let's Kill Uncle.
Hell yeah. I love it. I love that we could give you an avenue to talk about this film because like I said, the video drew last week with Baskin, I was like, I don't know how many podcasts are talking Baskin, and I don't know how many podcasts are talking Let's Kill Uncle. So it's cool to find these sort of gems that have this sort of significance or appreciation with our guests, and kind of walking it back and seeing how it entered your life. What was your experience with it, and then analyzing it from there. I'm very excited to hear how excited you are and that you're so passionate about this film. Let's hop into this thing. Let's Kill Uncle. This was a fun watch, and I really did go into it kind of blind, which, by the way, if you're listening or watching this and you still haven't seen this film, it's just on YouTube. You can just type it in, and there it is. It's like straight up ripped off like Turner Classic Movie Channel. It's got like the little Chiron in the bottom still and everything. But
I highly recommend if you have to watch it that way, and if you like it, I highly recommend. There's a very good, very cleaned up Blu-ray available from Kino Lorber, and they deserve credit for putting this weird thing out that probably doesn't have a huge audience. So if you like it, I highly encourage you to buy it or buy it for a friend. or something like that. I think that would be fair. But it is pretty easy to find online, even though it's hard to find in like the proper streamers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I couldn't find it anywhere to rent or stream or anything. It's just somebody thought to throw it on YouTube a couple years ago and nobody took it down. So thankful for them. That made this easy to do for sure. Although I'd be interested to see like a remaster of it. Because what I saw was such a fuzzy like 480p version of an already,
It's
TV
interesting.
broadcast.
There's so many, we get sort of, it's easy to take for granted how there's a lot of movies right now that are just easy to find with the click of a button. You go to justwatch.com, search for anything. There's a decent chance it's somewhere. However, there's a ton of stuff that is just not available anywhere. Like I recently, we have a podcast on our Patreon called Not on Disney Plus, where we talk about all of the stuff that Disney owns the rights to, but is for some reason not on Disney Plus. And we track it down. Some of it's easier than others. And we noticed that, and we're going to do this next month, neither Watcher in the Woods nor Something Wicked This Way Comes, not only are they not on Disney Plus, they're nowhere. Like there's no streamer right now that has these two high-profile, kid-friendly Disney horror movies from the early 80s that both have a big cult.
Yeah.
But they're both relatively well-known. So you never know what's just going to vanish from somewhere. And that always disturbs me. So I love being able to keep stuff like this alive. And I've had conversations with other people in the industry, and they're talking about like, why are you recommending these movies that aren't on streaming services? People can't find them. And I'm like, if they don't know they exist, they don't know to look for them or to ask for them, and then they'll never be available.
Right.
And that's what we have to do sometimes. We have to make sure that people remember that there is a demand for some of these movies. And hopefully, people will notice that people are talking about it online, and then they'll put it on a streaming service, or they'll re-release it on DVD through Shout Factory or Vinegar Syndrome or Kino or whatever. So, yeah, that's part of the job, I think, is to make sure people have awareness of older movies that might be obscure now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think so much of how people find films to watch these days is just by browsing the interface of whatever they're subscribed to. I want to find something new. Let me find something that's already on here I haven't seen before. Not so easily done if you're going to like dig through the trenches and go find, an old movie from the 60s you haven't caught before.
Yeah, convenience is great. I love convenience, but sometimes with convenience comes complacency, and then you just sort of accept whatever. And again, I don't know. I'd be curious what the average person, how many streaming services they subscribe to. I'd be surprised if it was more than 2 or 3. So you're limited to whatever Netflix, Disney Plus, and Hulu offer, for example. And once you really get down into it, they don't have that much. Especially when you go into like the big history of cinemas. So, so I think it's important to keep talking about this stuff.
I think I saw Connor smiling. Are you subscribed to like every service, Connor?
I think literally everything that is offered at this point, I'm subscribed to.
I subscribe to a lot as well. Like I have to for various, work purposes, so I can write about it or podcast about it or whatever. But like, I probably have, I probably have at least 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. So, but even then, there's still stuff you just can't find.
I know. I'll find myself. That's the good thing about having like an Apple TV is I can just hop through everything without closing and opening. I can just find stuff, but still, I find myself wanting something different because it's the same stuff that.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I've gone through pretty much everything, and I'm looking for something new. Exactly. Lucky enough, 2 weeks in a row, found something I've never seen or heard before.
Nice.
Yeah. There you go. That's the Reely Scared curriculum. Will get you there. All right, itinerary. We'll have you out there going into uncharted territories, like we are tonight. Let's Kill Uncle is a film, in a nutshell, is a film about a young boy whose father dies in a car accident, which we see in the opening scene of this film. Cameo.
The father is played by. Yep, there you go.
There it is. Yes, William Castle himself behind the wheel, which I understand he was kind of like Hitchcock in that way, right? He liked to sneak into all of his movies and.
Yeah, there are movies of his that he would like actually introduce like behind a desk, like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, or he would introduce the gimmick or whatever. So yeah, he threw himself into his movies and at least his marketing. He knew that people were seeing a lot of his movies because he was involved in them.
I love that. We need more of director on screen saying hello, thanks for coming. Let me tell you about my That's such a thing that nobody does anymore. I can't think of any time I've seen that.
I feel like M. Night Shyamalan should do that. I feel like he's like maybe like the one mainstream horror adjacent filmmaker who could probably get away with that because he cameos in all his movies anyway.
Yeah,
and so he's a little shameless about it, and I kind of love him for that. So like I feel like he could do it. I was actually really excited. I remember when he was going to reboot Tales from the Crypt, and I was like, oh, that's actually a good idea. I would have totally loved to see him do that. And that I guess the rights got weird and they never got around to it. But he would have been good for that. Yeah. It's kind of just in general, like directors as like household names or recognizable faces. Not really. Even now, when like information is so free and available, it seems very rare for a director to become that sort of widely known household name or face now. Like the only one I can really think of is like Christopher Nolan, where it's like, oh, everybody knows who that is now, you know. Well, there are levels, you know, like there's Christopher Nolan, there's Zack Snyder, there's Steven Spielberg, people who make the giant epic movies. But then, you know, Quentin Tarantino, then you get to like the indie realm, the Quentin Tarantinos, your Spike Lees. And then you also don't forget there's like the genre level where people who are famous to horror fans. Like there's a lot of mainstream people who have no idea who Eli Roth is. But Eli Roth is very good at branding himself. So a lot of people in the horror industry know exactly who he is. And there are some people who will see anything if his name is attached to it. And that goes for, you know,
James Wan.
James Wan is another great example right there. Lee Winnell is also starting to branch up and do his own thing. Blumhouse just in general. Jason Blum
you hear
pretty
Blumhouse,
good about branding himself.
You're like, I'm seeing that.
Exactly. So there's some of that, but it's hard to do, and not everyone has, you know, just because you're good at telling stories doesn't necessarily mean you're good at marketing. Doesn't necessarily mean you were designed to also be a late night TV host or something. So it's unreasonable to ask people to do that, but if you can pull it off, it can be really, really wonderful.
Yeah. That's a good mention, Connor. I'm surprised Quentin Tarantino doesn't do the hi, hey, how you doing? Like I can totally see like he's got such a nostalgia and reverence for like
he's gotten in that realm with like the road shows and everything and
And he has his own movie theater here in LA, the New Beverly, where it's shut down now like everything else, but he like schedules everything, and like a lot of the stuff there is like from his personal collection. So you basically get to see the stuff that he would put on a road show or on TV or whatever if he could, just by buying a ticket for it. Full disclosure, my co-host Whitney Seibold on my podcast is actually one of the projectionists at the New Beverly. Wow. So I have to say that in full disclosure. But it's a cool place to go. I will say that.
That's amazing. I would love to attend that theater someday in my life. We'll see. Whatever the future looks like, whatever shape society takes, I would love to get there eventually. It's definitely got a lot of steam around it, obviously. Let's kill Uncle. Let's do it. Let's kill him.
Yes, please.
Well, so William Castle, dies in a cameo appearance in a car accident. He plays the main character, Barnaby's father, orphaning him, and thus making him he's receiving a $5 million inheritance. He's inheriting the estate of their family, this wealthy family he comes from, and is being sent to go live with his uncle, Uncle Kevin. If I remember that correctly.
I think so, actually. Yeah, hang on. Let me double check here. Yeah, Uncle Major Kevin Harrison.
Yeah.
He's a war hero. He was a spy and an assassin. He's played by the amazing Nigel Green.
Yeah.
He's being sent to live with him on a small island off the coast of America. And it's still in America, but you know what I mean. It's a small island. And it takes a little bit, actually, to meet the uncle. Yeah. We're just getting to know this kid, Barnaby, played by Pat Carty from And Now Miguel. And the kid is a brat. The kid is obnoxious. The kid is a loudmouth. The kid likes to lie and puff himself up and say he's on a secret mission from the government. And he's just kind of a little jerk. And he meets on like the ferry to this island a little girl named Chrissy, played by Oscar nominee Mary Badham from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes. Yeah.
Who, not for nothing, is the little sister of director John Badham, who would go on to direct Saturday Night Fever. And she's great in this. And she's also very brash. They're both young. They're both young little jerk kids, and they're going to spend the whole summer on the island. And you think to yourself, "Oh, I know where this is going." Yeah. They're gonna fight. They're gonna be each other's like first love or whatever. They'll get in an adventure in a pirate's cove or some crap like that. And then no, it turns out Uncle shows up and he immediately starts trying to kill Barnaby to get his money, and he is weirdly in his face about it. Like he's not pretending he's not doing it. He just flat out tells Barnaby, "I'm trying to kill you for your money." Now, the good news for you is that I can't do it around the house or everyone will suspect me. This is Switzerland. This is neutral territory. You're safe in the house. The second you leave, every time I'm going to try to kill you, but I have to make it look like an accident. So if you keep on your toes, maybe you can last a while. Have fun. And you're looking at this like, what the hell is going on? And you realize that all of that setup with that kid being this little blowhard who likes to like brag about all his accomplishments, all that means is no one's going to believe him when he says this. Like no one at all is going to believe him when he says his uncle is trying to kill him because it's too absurd. It's it reminds me of in Matilda, where the Trunchbull is such an overtly evil presence in the school and so unapologetically and so frank and so directly horrible to all the kids that anytime a kid would tell their parents what was going on, their parents wouldn't believe him because that sounds absurd. So it's like that. He's so over the top evil that no one will believe he's that evil. And the kids, and it's a great setup because we all know that when we're a kid, you have no power. People don't believe you. Mm-hmm. People don't trust you. They take the word of adults for as sacred and the word of kids as immediately suspect. So these kids are trapped in this absolutely horrible situation. And then he goes up to Chrissy and says, "Listen, I can't play with you anymore. My uncle's trying to kill me and he might try to kill you too." And Chrissy's like, "Let's kill him." And he's like,
very enthusiastic.
You're weirdly gung-ho about this. And she's just like, "Uh-huh." And I'm looking at myself like, she's not asking for proof or nothing. Yeah. She just finds out she has an excuse to kill an adult. And she's like, "Oh, we're doing this now." And it's so dark and twisted after that. It's great.
She makes the pivot she makes from being so annoyed and like adversarial to Barnaby and fed up with him to, "All right, I'll help you kill your uncle. That sounds awesome." It is so quick. She's more on board and enthusiastic about killing that uncle than he is, and he's the one whose life is in danger. I thought it was hilarious and bizarre how quickly that character gets on board with his. It's her idea, even. It's not even his idea.
No, he was just like ready to resign himself to his fate. The idea of killing his uncle first had not yet come into his noggin until she was like, "Well, let's kill him first." And he's like, "Oh my God, we couldn't we?" And she's like, "Yeah, and I know how to do it." And he's like, "Okay." And it's so playfully dark.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think a lot of kids' movies, even today, don't have. And they definitely didn't have a lot of at the time. Like, we've always seen movies with, like, rough kids or kids who are, doing misdeeds or whatever, your Dennis the Menaces, or maybe your juvenile delinquents. But to show kids with this kind of darkness, I mean, this is like almost the bad seed in terms of how dark it is in terms of this child. So that sets this movie apart right now because it's set up as a kid's movie. And now it's a kid's movie where adults are actually trying to murder them. And now now the kids get to heroically, violently, possibly murder adults. And that is, I'm amazed they got away with that. Like, that's just so malevolent.
Right.
And so funny. And so committed to the bit that you just kind of have to fall in love with it.
And I think largely played for laughs is also an interesting element to it, is that at its core, it's about a man trying to murder children creatively and vice versa. But it's also like very like wickedly funny.
Yeah, very campy.
Yeah. And I think it's aware of that too. It's not like it's William Castle. It's not unintentional like, or it didn't age well. I think the film is very conscientious of what it's doing, and it's succeeding in being so over the top and ridiculous. And it is, you said it as well. It does kind of take a little, it feels like a little bit to kind of get there to where we're officially in uncle killing territory.
Right. I think
I
that's one of the film's charms, actually. I think at first time I was watching it, I thought, this is a little slow. You know, this is a little slow. I kind of know what the premise is. It's taking a while to get there. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, okay, but here's what it's doing. Again, it's establishing all of the reasons why Barnaby will have no help later, which is really important. I also think it's really, really effective, and this is a kind of a storytelling rule that very few filmmakers are so eager to break, which is dramatically changing the genre of a film really late in the game. This is something that Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez would do in From Dusk Till Dawn, where it's a crime movie for a solid 45 minutes, and then it's a vampire movie. And what that has the effect of, and I think it's actually very effective when done well, is reminding people that, a lot of horror movies begin in the first frame. The first frame is creepy, or the first scene is violent. And that establishes that this whole world is like that. That's the baseline, is monsters, serial killers, danger, the supernatural. But for most of the characters in these stories, they've lived their whole lives before anything horrifying has happened to them. So when you leave the big inciting incident off until later in the movie, yeah, the guy, William Castle, dies at the beginning, but it's a tragic death of a parent. It's not horror yet. When you leave that big horrifying inciting incident until quite late in the film, you end up you give the audience the same kind of shock and dread and fear that the characters will. So the initial murder attempt is when Uncle actually, and it's a little absurd, he hypnotizes Barnaby, and then he encourages him to walk off a cliff, and it's only through sheer luck that Chrissy's aunt happens to be walking by and saves him. But then when Barnaby is brought home, and Uncle sort of explains, okay, you survived, good for you, I have to kill you in a lot of different ways now. So let's just talk about the rules. And he shows him he's got a garrote wire. And what's interesting about that scene, and I think that's the scene that really solidifies this, not just as a dark comedy, but as horror, is the absolute terror on Barnaby's face, as his uncle is just flat out saying, your life of privilege. And this is a very privileged kid. This kid is talking about how, when I was growing up, we had filet mignon every night. Shut up, Barnaby. That kind of... He's the worst. He's not a good kid. He's a little jerk. And the idea that he'll get some comeuppance is a good thing, but killing him is way too far. And that's a very horror thing. It's people get their comeuppance for something bad they did, but it's disproportionately horrible. Like in The Hitcher, where a guy picks up a hitchhiker, and I think the first line of dialogue in the movie is, I'm not supposed to do this. And then the hitchhiker is so horrible to him over the course of the film. It's just okay, I've learned my lesson about hitchhikers. Can we scale it back? There's 80 dead people now. And that's true for Barnaby as well. So all of a sudden he realizes that he needs people, and he actually needs to be able to be honest with people. And that's all that's going on. But when the uncle just flat out tells him, your life is a horror show now. And for the rest of your life, or mine, I could just drop dead and you'd be fine. But for the rest of your life or mine, you are going to be walking on tiptoes and looking over your shoulder, because I will try to kill you anyway.
That was such a good scene too, where he was like, I could drop dead. I could have a heart problem. He's like, yes. You have a heart problem? He's like, no, I'm perfectly healthy.
Yeah. And the kid's so excited, do you have a bad heart? It's like, no, but I love how into it you're getting. Yes, this is the spirit. And this is what our life is now. It's trying to kill each other, and it's going to be great. And he's Barnaby. There's all of these scenes where he's playing with weapons of torture and death. He's got a garrote wire, and he actually just pulls it taut, and it cuts to Barnaby, and he flinches in his chair as if he just sliced his head off. And you realize that this is, all of a sudden, Barnaby has gone from the star of a playful Disney movie about living on an island for a summer into a realm of not just physical abuse, because again, he could be killed at any time, but constant psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think this movie gets a lot better than a lot of other movies about like evil uncles or whatever. Like something like Lemony Snicket, Series of Unfortunate Events. It's great, but it's so arch that you just don't necessarily get the sense that these kids are being traumatized by what's happening to them when they would. You know, having an uncle who's out to kill you. I wonder if I forget the actual author name, but I wonder if Lemony Snicket actually was familiar with this book. It was a very popular book when it came out. Yeah. I wonder if that was an influence, but like the idea is, this is a realm in which violence and horror are very open, but they do have a psychological toll that they're running here. And I think that the actual fear in Barnaby's face, I think Pat Carty, who plays him, is actually really good in this movie. I think he conveys the humor of the situation while also conveying the terror. And I think that's hard to do, especially for a young actor.
I think, he is great because in the first half of the film, I was like, it's going to be really hard for them to get me to root for this little fucker. And because Nigel Green comes in and is so charismatic and so delightful to watch, you're like, I know he's in the wrong, but in terms of who I'm enjoying watching here, it's kind of hard to almost not root for Uncle at the beginning of it all.
There's a line Uncle has, which is, you're a very charming boy, Barnaby, but $5 million charming you are not.
Yeah, and I was looking up like some like production notes about the movie and stuff, and apparently, because in the book it's 10 million inheritance, and then the movie it's 5 million. Apparently, Castle wanted to make it 20 million, but Universal was like, no. And Castle was like, no, it's got to be 20 million. I guess one of the heads of Universal came to him and was like, for $20 million, I would kill the kid myself.
That's a fascinating anecdote. I love that.
They were afraid like the audience
would want him dead.
Not be on the side of the kid. Would be like, kill the kid now.
They assumed the uncle would be the hero if the kid was worth too much money, which is a very, very, very cynical look at your audience.
Yeah.
We assume they're all bloodthirsty monsters who would kill a child for $20 million. But 5, they'd have to think about it. So that 5 is fine. 5 is good. We can do 5.
What a funny, like, weird producers know that, like, it has to be less money, so it's more sinister that he'd be willing to kill his nephew over it.
It's a reminder that every single decision on a movie is a complex decision. I mean, some people do, I guess, make decisions without thinking about it, but every single decision you make, even if it's just a number, can really have an impact on the way people perceive the events. So it's good to know that they were thinking about it. One of the things that frustrated me, and I guess we'll talk about it later, was apparently there were multiple endings shot for this movie, and for the life of me, I can't find out what they were. And I would really like to, because the ending of this movie is one of the weirder notes in it, and one of the things I think it kind of bombs. But we'll talk about that in a bit, I guess.
Because that's something else I saw too. I think it was Pat said like Universal picked the worst ending out of what was shot.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the ending, but I do feel like it's a bit of a weird reversal of where we've been. Yeah. But I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a shark in a fish pond.
I love the shark. I love it's such a charming little cut from what's clearly like archival footage of like a nature documentary, sharks swimming in the ocean, cut with a plastic fin slicing through these murky, disgusting swimming pool water. Such a funny edit and contrast with it. Every time it happened, I started laughing out loud.
I just want to say I love this setup because I was telling Taylor before, I was like, I don't know how much I'm going to have to say about this movie. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, there's actually a lot that I liked about this movie. It's so like silly and campy, and like the archival footage and stuff. It's just so funny that I can't help but love it.
No, it's super charming. And I love the way that they incorporate, because it's not, again, they're on an island, there's sharks in the ocean. And one of the first things we see, like when they're on the boat, is they're looking over the water and there's sharks. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, maybe that'll be important later. These are Chekhov's sharks. And then there's a bit where Barnaby and Chrissy go investigate this like hollowed out wreck of an old hotel that is not safe. And there's this great bit where there's like there's a welcome sign in the front, and then they pass by another sign that says warning, keep out. And Barnaby is just like, but they already said welcome, you can't take it back. And I'm like, that is the bulletproof logic of a child right there. Like, yes, I guess. I don't think that's the point, but yeah, okay. And they go investigating, and it's all super creepy. And then Barnaby like ditches Christy, and she starts to panic, and she's banging on all the doors, and she breaks through this like boarded up doors, and she falls into a fish pond, and it's like all mildewy and gross and covered in leaves. Yeah. And there's a fucking shark in it.
Yeah.
And why is there a shark in it? We do find out eventually later. Does it make any more sense than if we'd never known? No. None whatsoever. It's a weird thing to do. Eventually, we find out that Uncle's conspired to put the shark in there because, hey, maybe the kids will get curious about the hotel and fall in. And I'm like, A, that's stupid. B, if you wanted them to fall in, why did you board up the only door? The door is like boarded up with nails on wood and shit. How would they get in there?
Maybe he knew if you couldn't get in. See, Uncle plays 5D chess. Uncle knows if you can't get in, Barnaby's going to try really hard to get in, and he's going to fall in that pool. He's going to get eaten by that shark.
A part of me wishes that Uncle had like gone like full Predator on this and like covered the island in a whole bunch of like different like, you know, booby traps and landmines and things. And it's not that. It's not that ornate. I feel like if it were made now, someone would go a lot further with it and try to turn it into like this kind of Home Alone series of like horror action set pieces. But yeah, I like the way they did it now. One of the first schemes Barnaby and Chrissy do is they're going to kill Uncle by switching out the mushrooms in his dinner with toadstools.
Yeah.
And watching Mary Badham like watch Nigel Green like about to eat mushrooms and going, "You're gonna eat it, right? You're gonna die, right? You're gonna eat them. You're gonna eat all those mushrooms. You're gonna do it. You can do it."
And the way he draws it out with, "Oh, try some. You need to have some." You know, like come on now. I'm so good at my mushroom sauce. Go ahead and have like he's drawing it out. Like the tension keeps building and building and building as they're all now. Yeah, it cuts between the two of them. Like watching Barnaby's like his mouth's open, he can't believe it. He's like, "I'll take all the mushroom sauce then if you don't want any." Like just such a fun back and forth dynamic between all three of them of like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it?
And then he starts eating them and nothing happens. And you're just like, huh? What?
His hamming it up of when like he fakes his death after eating it is just so like insane.
Yeah, and William Castle like lifts the camera off of the table and like starts looming it over him in one great elaborate like Hitchcockian shot, and then he just sort of like, "Barnaby, not in Switzerland," and then he dies. Like he's not actually dead, but like he just thought he'd shame Barnaby for like breaking the rules of engagement before he fake died. And then Barnaby's like, "Did we do it?" And he's like, "No, you didn't do it. I switched out the mushrooms. No, you're fine. Everything's fine." Good show though.
I love that's why it makes it so difficult to like not root for him, because he's so delightful to watch in this, and he takes such joy not only in having to figure out these elaborate ways, these very like Looney Tunes-esque ways to try and kill his nephew, but then just seeing in turn how he tries to, because I imagine Barnaby, you know, obviously like idolizes his uncle a lot. You know, I think that's probably where his like penchant for violence and death comes from, is he's read his uncle's book, who knows a million ways to kill a man, and is this career spy, war hero, killer, assassin. Which also I like. I'm very puzzled by his claim that he's like, "Well, I'm broke," because it's like he has a mansion on a private island. I guess it's a commentary on veterans and authors.
I guess you could put it that way. You can also be like cash broke. Like, okay, yeah, I have this house, but I actually don't. He could be swimming in debt, you know. And so it's a matter of like, you know, when you're rich, you can only get so broke. Is the thing, because you have all of these liquid assets and you can always sell that off. And so, but the thing is that. It's interesting that money is just the only factor here. It's implied that he killed Barnaby's dad, but they never actually come right out and say it, which I'm curious about why they sort of sort of backed off on that. I guess they wanted us to wonder, even though he's clearly a villain. Yeah, he just wants money. Money is a big motivating factor. And it also, again, it reminds you, and I think that's actually a bit of a commentary, not so much on him being an author, so much as a commentary on him being a soldier. Yeah. And they're kind of making the argument that he wasn't a soldier because he had, sort of noble ideals about protecting the country or anything. He was attracted to that life because he's a homicidal madman.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. So in the end, it's just like, I will use my hard-earned skills of murder for whatever end suits me. And if it happens to be, for the good of the World War II or whatever, great. And if it's killing my son for the money, also great. I don't care. I'm here for the murder. Like I've been rewatching a lot of the 1960s Batman, like live action Batman series with Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. And there's this part in one of the early episodes where one of his henchpersons says, "Hey, Riddler, why don't you just do the crimes and not leave clues everywhere? Why do you have to do the riddles?" And Frank Gorshin just like pauses the scene and looks at him like, it's like, I don't even know you. Like, I got in this for the riddles. The crime is incidental. I do this for the riddles. And that's how I feel about Nigel Green. He's in it for the murder. Everything else is incidental.
Yeah, because throughout the movie, he's so into the game. He keeps calling it a game, and he's just so happy about it. Like, he's talking to Barnaby, like, it's a game, and you're going to play the game, and the rules of the game are this, and he's so happy. He has a grin on his face the whole time. Like, he gets such enjoyment out of it. It's exactly like that Riddler story you got. It's exactly like that. He just gets enjoyment out of the game.
I think he's just surprised that it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get as much entertainment value as he can from the situation. And over the course of the film, he tries a couple of things. There's one bit where Barnaby and Chrissy are meeting in their usual hangout place, a graveyard. Thanks, William Castle. And Uncle Kevin like surrounds them in a ring of gasoline and then just lights a match and just gonna burn down a graveyard with these children in it. And then the only thing that saves them is that it rains, and you can just, and it cuts to like Uncle Kevin just sort of leaning against the tombstone, looking up like, really, God? Really?
He even says, of course it would rain.
Yeah, like he's Wile E. Coyote at that point.
Exactly.
Like, he's got all of the skills, he's got all of the traps, he's got all of the tech, and just fate won't let it happen. The kids are just charmed. There's also a really cute bit where we cut to, out of nowhere, Chrissy draining the gasoline from an airplane. And it's his uncle's private airplane. And she's just singing and happy. It's like, I'm murdering a guy. Gonna kill a guy and feel nothing. And she knows that he's gonna like fly off the island. She thinks he's gonna crash and die, and that's the idea. And then turns out Barnaby was taken in the plane with him. And Uncle Kevin is just like, well, guess we're going down together. And he like turns the plane into a nosedive, and you see like water rushing out of them. And what Barnaby doesn't know is that there's like a second tank of gasoline that is totally full, and they're totally safe and fine. But Uncle Kevin just has to milk it. Like, oh, you thought you were gonna kill me?
Yeah,
hilarious.
Uncle is not. He's not very nuanced. He's not tortured or traumatized by his time in combat. He loves the game, and he seems so, even though, and I don't think he necessarily loves that he has to kill his nephew, but he's so excited to just have an opponent in the game and somebody that is going to play along. That's his life force. That's like what's driving him, and he finally gets to do it. And Barnaby is like, sort of unintentionally, his protege, his student who's been reading his book and idolizing him for years. So he's able to get to that point pretty quick too. I still think of anybody, the biggest villain almost is Chrissy, because at least like the uncle's got motivation. It's not great motivation. It's very selfish and financially motivated, but he's got a reason to kill Barnaby. Barnaby has a reason to kill his uncle for his own self-preservation. Chrissy's just kind of like, fuck it, let's party. Let's kill Uncle. Like,
yeah, she tries to kill Uncle before she has any tangible evidence or eyewitness, experience that Uncle is actually trying to kill Barnaby. She has nothing. There's no reason for her to jump in with like both feet like this.
She has the initiative too. Like she goes off and does her own side projects that Barnaby's not even privy to. She's like, I'm going to steal a gun. Like you said, I'm going to empty out the fuel tank of a plane. And she doesn't even tell. Like he finds out after it's already done. He's like, why didn't you tell me? I'm getting blamed for this shit. You didn't let me know that you're trying to kill my uncle. Call me. What's going on? I love that she does her own thing because that's how enthusiastic she is.
And her backstory doesn't even really support that. It's my understanding. Michelle, my wife and partner, she's read the book and she's more familiar with it. And it's a somewhat liberal adaptation, and they changed her character a lot apparently. But in the movie, she doesn't have like this weird, creepy backstory that would justify this. Her mom left her. She's not dead. She just left them and stuck her with dad. Dad has remarried. They live in a trailer park. He married the person who owns the trailer park so they don't have to pay rent anymore. Sounds very mercenary. And apparently they were quite eager to like have some time to themselves, so they just shoveled her off with her aunt. And now here she is. And when she's alone with her aunt, she's perfectly reasonable, sensible, relatively nice child.
Yeah.
And then the second she has an opportunity to murder someone, she's like, let's do it. Let's commit some murders. And
waiting her whole life for the excuse to go ahead and do this.
And that's something that's just, there's a malevolence to that kind of humor. The idea of this young person who's just excited to have an excuse to kill. And again, I think the movie I think the most comparison of, and like within like a decade in either direction, is The Bad Seed, which starred Patty McCormick as a little girl who was actually a serial killer. And I'm trying to remember who played her mom, but and it's all about how the mom is coming to terms with the fact that her little girl is a monster, and what is my responsibility to take care of her, or to, do something about her so other people won't get hurt. And it's really a psychologically torturous movie, and it's really good. Some of the actual like psychology in it is really, really bad and inaccurate and wrong, but for the most part, it's just like really, really unpleasant. But when William Castle gets to a story about killer kids, he's just like, but it's fun. They're plucky. They're all having a good time, It's like no one complains when like Kevin McAllister like drops tarantulas on the Wet Bandits, or like shoves like some paint cans full of concrete in their face and like stabs them through the legs and electrifies them so bad they turn into skeletons. No one complains about that. Why is it so bad when I do it?
That's true. I never really thought like what Home Alone is a little more involved, more like visceral and physical. like Barnaby in this film, he's a lot more plotting. It's kind of indirect attempts on his uncle's life.
And the thing is that you have to remember that in Home Alone, Kevin could call the cops at any time. He has no reason to do what he's doing. He could call the cops at any time, and he doesn't.
He's also a man of the game. He's playing the game. He loves it.
Playing the game. He loves to kill. Kevin loves to kill. That he doesn't kill is more of a function of the Looney Tunes sensibility of the movie than it is about like the coyote wants to eat the roadrunner. It is a violent intent, and I think Kevin's the same way. There's a if you ever watch Home Alone 4, which I don't recommend because it's bad. When the new Kevin runs into the new Daniel Stern. He's played in that one by French Stewart. And French Stewart's just like, oh God, it's him. It's just, he gets the better of us every time.
We had Jessica totally off the beat path there, but Jessica's just wondering, Connor, what are you drinking? Looks delicious.
This tall glass. It's a raspberry milk stout this time by Left Hand Brewery. Tastes like a raspberry truffle. Very good.
That sounds great. And I'm not much of a drinker, but that sounds really good.
Yeah,
very good.
I'm just having water.
Yeah, I just have to go.
I definitely need to drink more water, but this show, I'll crack open a few.
You've got to reckon with these dark places we must go, such as capturing tarantulas and sneaking them into your uncle's bed. I love this part. I love that
Me
scheme.
too.
Because that's what they're doing when they go out and Uncle tries to light them on fire and make it look like an accident. Because he's also kind of like staging Barnaby to be a pyromaniac. Like he must apparently get the idea from when he almost accidentally sets the dinner table on fire. But he like stuffs Barnaby's pockets with matches. Keeps like mentioning out loud, "Be careful with fire, Barnaby. This island's a tinderbox this time of year." And then starts lighting the island on fire so that everybody will go, "Oh, well, Barnaby was always playing with fire." I guess
Barnaby again with his matches.
You're the worst of us, Barnaby.
Which it's got to be said. Have we ever met a Barnaby that we like? I can't say that I have. I
don't think I've ever met a Barnaby I liked.
What about Barnabas? Does Barnabas Collins count?
Barnabas is classic.
Barnabas is okay. So Barnabas is like the classy, like the retro Barnaby.
Yeah,
I feel like I've seen a good Barnaby somewhere.
Barnaby's such a punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a fun. While I was also researching the movie, there was also a funny story about the spider scene because they used a real spider, and it was Pat Carty who put the spider on him. Didn't want to do it. Was terrified of spiders, and then Castle had an anecdote about Sean Connery and Dr. No. It was like Sean Connery did it, and so Pat was like, if it's good enough for Connery, it's good enough for me. But in Dr. No, they used plain glass on top of Sean Connery to do it. So Castle kind of tricked Pat Carty into actually handling the spider and putting it. Who plays the uncle?
Nigel Green.
Nigel Green. So,
yeah, that's actually like crawling over his mouth, which, again, tarantulas are this weird animal that movies have told us are way more dangerous than they actually are.
Yeah.
Like, they're poisonous, but they're not that poisonous. They're probably not going to kill you. Like, they're fine. They're just a bug. But they're just really big and oogie looking. And so it always amuses me when, like, we're gonna kill them with all these tarantulas. Well, I hope you get 100 of them, because they're not that poisonous. They're giant. They don't need to be that poisonous. They're just gonna crush you. That's what they do.
Sorry, I had the story wrong. So Green didn't want the spider crawling on him.
Yeah. Pat Carty was afraid of the tarantulas. That is true. Green didn't want it.
Yeah, Castle asked Carty, wouldn't it be funny if we dropped down Nigel's chest? And Nigel was like, I'm not really into that. And then told him the story about Sean Connery, and then didn't tell him about the plain glass over Sean Connery.
Yeah, so it is super creepy. Like, I wouldn't be like all gung-ho about like putting tarantulas all over my body or whatever like that, but I also wouldn't be really worried about my safety. I'd like, bugs, that's all I'd do.
I love
I thought of a Barnaby. Cary Grant plays a character named Barnaby in the movie Monkey Business with Ginger Rogers, and that is a very likable character.
That's a Barnaby that you like.
You ever see that one? It's adorable. They could take this like magic potion that makes them go back mentally to where they were when they were 12. So you just get to see Ginger Rogers and Cary Grant play little kids, and it's just really funny.
That sounds good. Have you ever met a Barnaby in your actual life? I don't think I have.
I met a couple of Barneys, and that might have been short for Barnaby, so I can't say for certain.
Barney is immediately likable to me. I don't know if it's because of Barney the Big Purple Dinosaur or Barney from The Simpsons, but I just can't think of any Barney. I can't think of a Barney I don't like. So that's an interesting contrast. Maybe that's a strategy. If you're a Barnabas, you gotta go Barney, or else no one's gonna give you any respect in life.
Understood. The one thing I really there are two things I don't like about this movie. One is I think the ending is just a weird note. It's not bad, but it's weird. We'll talk about it in a minute. But the one thing I don't like about it is the character of the Catchman, who is this a guy. He has no legs. He's got a very scarred face. Yeah, and he's also like the only person of like color in the cast, and he's demonized like right off the bat. Oh, he looks scary. Ergo, he is scary. Ergo, he must be a bad man. And initially, you think to yourself, okay, we're going to learn a valuable lesson here. We just got off To Kill a Mockingbird and Boo Radley. So when the Catchman like saves them from the shark, it's going to be like, oh, okay. Right. See, we were wrong to judge based on looks. And then it turns out the Catchman is actually in on it with Uncle. And then you're just like, what the fuck message is this? This is a terrible message for kids. This is so terrible. I couldn't get behind it. I thought that was a weird miscalculation. It just where my sympathies would lie there, because I was actually just kind of mad at the movie for like just saying that like people who look scary are bad people. Yeah. People who aren't white are scary is the movie's kind of argument here. And I'm just like, dude, no, fucking 60s, no, that's not.
Yeah,
it's a very small part of the movie, thank God. But like, I was that part just fingers on chalkboard to me when they get to it.
Yeah, that's something I did not like as well. It was just so, I don't know, just so wrong. And I was just like, as soon as it popped up, I was like, oh God.
It's something that I think people forget. Like a lot of people think that like as long as a horror movie is scary or fucked up, then you kind of got carte blanche to do everything, and that's not the case. And I think it is important to remember that it is totally it's totally possible to tell a scary, fun, weird, in your face, controversial, any kind of horror movie while still being ethical about it. Mm-hmm. And these kind of decisions, and again, different time, sure. Not forgivable, but you can see like how this happened. But that's the sort of thing that just we need to remind ourselves that we still need to have this conversation. Yeah. And movies still do this sometimes. I can't imagine. Hopefully it's not all like Machiavellian scheming, like, haha, I'm going to put all of these terrible messages in my film. It's like, no, it's probably just a lot of subconscious stuff in this, but regardless, it needs to be talked about, and that's something that is a value of criticism, is to make us aware of this, so that hopefully people don't do that shit again, because it's just wrong.
Yeah, it does feel it doesn't feel like a coincidence. It does feel like a choice in this movie. That as soon as that character arrives, it's the first note of a horror element in the entire film is his arrival in the story.
This guy exists. No, like that's
yeah.
It's really not cool. It's really not cool at all. And it's frustrating because so much of the rest of the movie is just charming and dark and a little scary, especially if you were a kid. But that whole bit is totally whiffed. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it all leads to like this one more big confrontation at like the dilapidated hotel, and it's all about like the uncle's going to try to like hypnotize them into walking into the pool with the shark, because that won't raise any red flags. When the kids fall into the fish pond with a man-eating shark in it, both of them, like
that doesn't feel like an accident or natural disaster. Yeah. Like someone's gotta. The shark didn't get there by itself. Who put this? Like somebody's gonna ask, "What's the shark doing in the pool?" Like somebody, a human being was involved in this at some part of the way. I don't think this was the natural habitat of this animal. And I also do wonder how long that shark was in there and how it was surviving that long.
You've never heard of the fish pond shark? Never heard of that?
It is kind of
a natural occurrence.
That sounds like the kind of thing I'd be scared of when I was a little kid. Like when I was like in the swimming pool and I'm like, oh God, what if the giant squid from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is in there? And my parents were just like, it's not that big a pool, son. You can see everything in it right now. It's probably not a giant squid in there. Aha! Probably.
Yeah, and had I seen this as a kid, I'm totally right there. That's always where your mind goes as a kid. You get in any body of water, you're like shark, alligator. So like if I had seen this as a kid, that would have been very troubling for me. I would have been unpacking that for a long time. That it is somehow not out of the question that a shark might be in a swimming pool, and you may not know until you get in the swimming pool. But once you do, it's too late. It'll see you. And again, every time we get that scene of someone falling in, it cuts to the archival footage. It's just fantastic. You come back to the plastic tail flipping around in the water. It's so
like the water doesn't match like the actual pond. It's like again, it's got pond scum and leaves in it and everything. And then as soon as we get to the shark, it's like bright blue nature documentary shark. It's a real hoot though, and I really wish I want to know. I don't know if they had like. I assume there was some guy under the water with like a shark fin on his back or on a pole or something, because it's actually moving really fast. Like it doesn't feel like mechanized or anything. So it's actually like for like a brief shot or two, it's actually a little intimidating. And then you remember what you're looking at, and you go, okay, sure, okay. You know what? You knock yourself out, William Castle. You just have the time of your life because this is it. And then the movie just stops. It doesn't even end. It just stops. The other adults have figured out that the kids are in danger and the sirens are coming, and they manage to like push Uncle into the swimming pool, but he manages to get out, and he hears that people are coming. He's just like, okay, you know what? I'm out, tapping out. You win this round. I'm out of here. Chrissy, good game. Barnaby, good game. Bye. And then he just gets in his plane and flies away, and you're just like, what? That's it? He's not going to get his comeuppance? He's not going to, like, I understand not killing him, but he's not going to get, like, arrested or something. Like, no, this is the kind of movie where the bad guy is so charming he gets away. And then, as they see him flying away, Barnaby, and this is like the last thing in the movie, yells, I'll miss you, Uncle Kevin. I really will. And I'm like, okay, I'm not entirely sure that's where your head was at, Barnaby. But if it was, that's a really dark note to end this movie on. That this guy has like so corrupted this child that this is just what he thinks life is now. And I guess it's kind of setting you up for, if not a sequel, then just like in your head, you imagine that the uncle's going to come back and try to kill him a few more times, just like randomly throughout his life. And that could be really, really fun. But like, yeah, it's just I really want to know what the other endings were that made more sense. Like maybe the uncle just died or whatever. That would have been fine too. Or I don't know. I'd be very fascinated to find out. If anyone knows, please let me know.
Yeah, because the uncle really did he was like, GG's everybody. Here's a key. You can get out. See you later. And then
it's so funny to me when he climbs, because it feels so poetic when he gets knocked in, because they set up the sharks at the very beginning before Uncle even shows up. They do this whole like crazy haunted house sequence where he's like talking to him through a mask and he's hypnotizing him again. He hypnotizes Chrissy. He's like he's got it locked in. The adults are looking. It feels like this great build where they trick Uncle, like they've mastered the game. They knock him in, and he's gonna get eaten by sharks. And then he just swims over and climbs out like it's nothing. I'm like, what? The movie.
It feels like a studio note. It feels like the studio said, "Listen, I know what it's called, but we can't actually have the kids kill him."
Yeah,
he's got to survive. But why let him get away with everything? That's the thing I don't understand. Like it's great. I love it. It's entertaining, but it's such a bold, weird sort of trickster move. Yeah. I feel like William Castle has like tricked everybody into this theater thinking you're either going to get something super duper mega dark, and then it's actually just this playful kind of like Addams Family level like kids movie, or you think you're going to get some kids movie, and then for a kids movie it's super duper mega dark. Right. And I love that. I love how weird that is. I love that like it's this in this weird in between zone between absolutely terrifying and cute. And that's a really hard place to find, let alone live in. And I think even when the movie is weird, I think it just sets up shop there and just does great business. So I love all of that.
Yeah, when I watched it for the first time, I almost kind of read the ending, Barnaby's enthusiasm for like maybe Barnaby is gonna go find Uncle, or maybe he's never gonna see him again. I don't know. He flies off into the clouds, which it also does feel like a hero's send off. There's like this sweeping orchestral score playing. It's like there's giving it like such a happy, triumphant ending, and Uncle went off to live happily ever after the hero's journey and it's over. It's like
he went off to live on a farm for other homicidal uncles, and he'll just be there.
He'll roam free with the other homicidal uncles.
Yeah, it's such a weird send-off, but I kind of wondered if that was what they're playing it. I guess you almost could read it as a sequel thing, but like, is Barnaby going to go find Uncle? I can't, like, I'm gonna miss you. I guess he doesn't quite say, but to me it sounds like I can't wait to see you again, almost like, because I'm coming for you next time, and there is no Switzerland this time, Maybe
it doesn't seem dark though. He's just sort of like a cheerful, and I'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow kind of vibe. So it doesn't really have that, but like it could have worked that way, and it could just like a part of me is just like Uncle Kevin has rewired this little kid's brain, and now he's just gonna think in terms of constant threat and also the need to constantly be on the attack. And these kids are probably really screwed up by this in one level or another, and we won't see that fallout, but you get the impression that this is a really traumatic summer.
I don't know if it was so traumatizing for Chrissy. She seemed just so into it the whole time. I mean, her face when at the dinner scene and then siphoning out the gasoline on the plane, she just seemed so into it.
She's such a fun actor.
Yeah.
And I think she's really just eating up the scenery in that scene. And I think you're probably right. I think maybe what I meant more for Chrissy was I feel like this activated her.
Yeah.
You know, like there was like a code word and it was just like, you know, xylophone, foxtrot, Andy Rooney, Bugs Bunny, Silver. And she's like, oh, now I'm a serial killer. Boop.
The evil uncle trots at night. I gotta kill an uncle.
Their entire friendship and like reverence for each other completely crumbles when they're no longer collaborating on a murder.
Yeah, immediately they were on the boat. She's
literally screaming at him. I
hate
you
like that.
I think that's actually good advice. I think it's good, like actually just relationship advice, though, in general, which is sometimes the best way to get along with someone is to do a project. You know, like when you both share the same goals, you can put aside your differences and actually like really connect. But then once the project evaporates, you just fall back into your old stuff. So I don't know, find another project, find someone else's.
So you heard it here first. The best way to get along with your spouse, your significant other, try to kill your uncle.
Yeah,
I believe the word I used was find a project, but yeah, sure, whatever. Let's do that.
If your uncle's trying to kill you, then absolutely collaborate on killing your uncle.
Yeah, sure. Then turnabout is fair play. No one's arguing that.
I can almost see this film now, like coming to the end of this. I can see this is like a prequel to like The Most Dangerous Game, and that's actually Barnaby. He lives on this island. Now this is his domain, and he's bringing people in, and now he's hunting them for sport because he's got the love for the game now. So
or maybe that's Uncle Kevin, and that's why he's in so much like financial disarray. It's just like, listen, I bought this castle, I put landmines all around the island to try to scuttle ships, and I had to buy a bunch of like, you know, evil goons to like do my bidding, and it's really hard to like, what do you call it? What do you call it when you take like a dead body and they turn it into a statue?
Is there a word for that?
It's really hard to taxidermy. It's really hard to taxidermy like a human head. So like that's a lot of chemicals I got to buy, and I'm in a hole, and I need to make some real money fast, or my whole Most Dangerous Game island like is just gonna collapse like a flan in a cupboard. So yeah.
Get my uncle here and throw a couple sharks in the pool while you're at it. All right, I'll be there on Wednesday. Here's some housekeeping.
You know, there's something else I was thinking too, where I feel like there might be a bit of commentary here about the psychological fallout of this is a whole generation, and like the boomer generation, like in the mid 20th century, where they were growing up with parents, many of whom were in one world war or another, or the Korean War, later the Vietnam War, and the psychological damage, the post-traumatic stress that a lot of these people took home with them had a real impact on young people. I remember my mom, my grandfather on my mother's side was a flamethrower in World War II, and he saw some shit. And that actually really just had a really, really difficult effect on her upbringing, because he was he was changed by that. And that could be sort of a commentary here about how here are all these people who were expected to go to war, commit acts of violence. Yeah, maybe for their country, maybe it was for a good cause, but committing acts of violence will change you, will affect you, will make you think of violence differently, perhaps. And so this could be a generational kind of story where we're looking at how that gets passed on to different generations. It gets filtered through different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can absolutely. That is kind of the transition at the end. There is this experience has changed this kid forever, and he's not. He doesn't seem, again keeping in with like the personality or the mood of this film. He's not overtly traumatized by it, but he's certainly been like enveloped by whatever strange world these characters live in, where he's gleeful about murder, and he's inherited not just this estate from his family, but now this mindset, this penchant for blood, but like taking so much joy in it, not being a grizzled or worn down by it. It's like, this is a game to play, and you can get good at the game. Well,
when you think about it, he's actually kind of becoming Uncle. Like Uncle, when he left the service, what did he do? He wrote like this salacious tell-all book about all the people that he killed. What does Barnaby spend so much of the first part of the film doing? Bragging, telling stories, telling people about all of his amazing exploits. He's cut from the same cloth. He's an apple didn't fall far from the tree kind of kid. And now that he's understood that there's actually like excitement to be had in murder or maybe getting murdered, here we go. He's just going to end up, this could all have been an elaborate attempt to sort of program him and to sort of keep this sort of weird homicidal streak going in the family.
Yeah. Keep the family legacy alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, until Barnaby writes his own tell-all. Oh my gosh, it's been such a blast to talk about this film. I'm so happy you brought this to us.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I figured there was a decent chance you hadn't seen it because I hadn't, so I wouldn't assume everyone else had. But I also know it's weird, and the structure is weird, and there are a couple of missteps, and we talked about them. So I was like, is this going to be their cup of tea? And I think it's going to be one of those movies where, I see a lot of movies, and a lot of them are really good, and I recommend them to people, and a lot of the people like them. Sometimes they don't. But there's those weird movies where if you recommend this to someone and they really dig it, you're friends. There's like on some level, our tastes are very specifically aligning. Like if I recommend Rockula and you like Rockula, I'm like, okay, then we're best friends forever. And that's that. There's no fighting it. That's just who we are now. I feel like this is going to be one of those for me. Like, it's a little weird, and it's not going to be everyone's wavelength. There are some people who have these weirdly adamant ideas about what is horror and what isn't horror, and I think some of them would reject this for being, kind of too cutesy or too campy or too silly. But I think this is very tidily within the genre. It's the kids' movie version of it. But I do think this is a freaky little film, and I think that any horror enthusiast would have, hopefully, a good time. I'd understand if you didn't, but I hope you would.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend it. Again, it's not the kind of super suspenseful, super scary kind of movie, but it's just such a fun ride. It's such a product of its time, and does feel like such a let's go to the drive-in and check out this old cult movie type. I would definitely recommend it. It's very fun. It takes its time at first, but once you get to what the movie is, once Uncle enters, it is just a ridiculous like cat and mouse homicide attempt of a movie. It's great.
And Nigel Green, I think, is like upper echelon great horror movie villain. Like if you only watch for him, you're gonna have a great time, because he is just having the time of his life in this film.
He's a delight and a joy. And again, this movie is easy to watch too on YouTube, but yes, available on Blu-ray if you want to purchase a hard copy of it. I would like to see it remastered. I would like to see that plastic shark fin HD. What that looks like.
Pretty, actually. It's a pretty looking movie. I think William Castle is one of those filmmakers who, again, everyone gets caught up in the gimmick and they don't always realize he knew what he was doing. He had his own style, and sometimes that style was a little naive. I feel mostly on purpose, but he knew how to shoot a movie. And I think this is actually a pretty good looking movie, especially when you consider that I think visually it's trying to be a bit more in terms of like what were the type of kids movies being made at the time, like The Parent Trap or something. So I feel like that's what they're playing off of, and then just adding some horrific elements to it.
I gotta say, at first when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is so silly. I don't know how much I'm going to have to say about it, but this is the second week in a row where there's a movie brought forward. I've never seen it before. Didn't really know how I felt about it until I came on the show and started unpacking it, unraveling it, and talking about it. And then I'm like, I definitely like this more than I thought I did. So, talking about it now, I definitely liked it more. because I had a lot more to say about it than I thought I was going to. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this gem to us. I don't know if I would have found it otherwise, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say, first off, again, a shout out once again to Michelle, who writes under M. Lapis da Silva, and her novel Hooker is available now wherever fine books are sold. But it's her. She's the one who brought this to me, and I promised I would remind everybody that this is based on a book by a writer named Roanne O'Grady. And she wrote apparently a whole series of films in a very similar tone. Let's Kill Uncle was published in 1963, but she wrote he wrote books called Uhulahan's Jest, Pippin's Journal, Bleak November, and The May Spoon. Her work has been pretty recently rediscovered and given a whole new critical literary reassessment. And it turns out Let's Kill Uncle as a book is actually enormously influential without a lot of people being aware of it. It inspired Morrissey. It inspired a variety of musicians and filmmakers and writers. And I think the one of her books was had illustrations by Edward Gorey. So check all that out. All of her books are pretty widely available. And, don't forget to support the original person who brought you this wonderful bit of weirdness.
Absolutely. And I'm always looking for new books to read. So I will absolutely, I would love to see what the original literary version of the story reads like. I would love to, I would love to check that out. So I certainly will. That's the show tonight. Thank you again, Bibbs, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute blast talking about this with you. Where can all the great ghouls and goblins find you across the internet?
Oh my God, I do so many things. Okay, so mainly what I'm doing right now is I have a podcast network with my co-host and co-producer Whitney Seibold, who's also a film critic. It's called the Critically Acclaimed Network, and that is a whole podcast feed where we have a variety of shows that are available. There's our flagship show, Critically Acclaimed, where we review new release movies. There's a show called Episode Zero, where we look at the prehistory of pop culture phenomenon. We spent 20 episodes exploring all of the movies that influenced Star Wars. We are currently in the next wave of that, where we're going to spend about another 20 episodes exploring all of the films that led to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So that's really exciting. I'm having a really good time with it. We've got a show called We've Got Mail, where we answer our listeners' various mail. We have a show called Canceled Too Soon, where we talk about TV shows that lasted only one season or less from all throughout television history. Right now, we're in the middle of a yearly event called Suddenly Last Season, where we talk about stuff that was most recently canceled. We just did an episode about Marvel's Hellstrom over on Hulu. That's what's available now. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/critically acclaimed network. And over there, we have a lot of exclusive shows. We have a show called All Our Yesterdays, where we're reviewing every single episode of Star Trek ever produced in production order. And we're about to finish up the original series. We only have a couple of episodes left. So that's about 50 hours worth of content that's available right away if you sign up. We have a show called Holy Batman, where we're reviewing every single one of the live action 1960s Batmans. We talked a little bit about that in this episode. A show called Not on Disney Plus, where we talk about everything that isn't on Disney Plus but should be. A show called Only the Best, where we're working our way through every single film ever nominated for Best Picture in chronological order. And we do commentary tracks as well. We do hangouts. There's a whole bunch of stuff over there. So that's patreon.com/critically acclaimed network. And the Critically Acclaimed Network, just the free feed, is available on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and stuff like that. And of course, I'm on Twitter. Bibbiani. Yeah.
That was a stunning resume about it. I like to think I'm busy. I'm like, God, I can't keep up. That you put me. I'm not 1/12 of what you just.
Don't
read.
you dare! Don't you dare! I got to tell you, man, it is a grind to make that many shows. I love doing it. But it is difficult to keep up that volume, and what you do is just as valuable. Do not feel like you have to throw yourself into the deep end constantly and constantly be working, because that can be a trap. So I'm actually I am actually struggling. I need to make ways to spend more time with myself and my family. And, I have to, that level of organization is really, really difficult. So
Sure.
I just love this show, and I love being on this show. And thank you again. I'd love to be on again sometime if you ever want to have me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is great. Don't you dare think that you need to make like a dozen podcasts like I do. That's a rabbit hole that leads to a whole wonderland, and sometimes it's more fun than others. So don't worry about that.
No, I just admire your dedication, man, and clearly talking to you. If anybody's unfamiliar with Bibbs until now, obviously this is a man who knows what he's talking about. Very entertaining to listen to and speak with. So I would encourage everybody to go seek that out and get more William Bibbiani in your life. You could use it. Make sure also tune in again next week. Next Thursday, we're going live once again. We're going to be joined by indie director Jacob Horn, who has selected Deadbeat at Dawn. We're going to be talking about another film I haven't seen before. So exciting. All these new experiences. That is streaming right now on Shudder, or you can watch it for free on Tubi. To be or not to be? That is the question. So go check out Deadbeat at Dawn. And then we're not done with William Castle this month. On the 28th, we'll be talking about House on Haunted Hill with horror writer and critic Angela Rose. Can't wait to go for the dynamic here, the range of one of the more obscure Castle films to probably the most notorious and well-known. So it's going to be a great month. We've got such a range of films to talk about. So come back Thursday. Go find Bibbs. Everywhere. Go find them everywhere is the short of it. And stay tuned to this channel because I believe once we are done the non-spoiler WandaVision review, Matt had a chance to peek at the first 3 episodes of Marvel's WandaVision, and his non-spoiler review will be going live on the channel momentarily here. So stay tuned for that. Holler in the comments. Let us know what you think. Once again, thank you for watching Reely Scared. Thank you, Bibbs, for joining us. It's been a real treat and a pleasure. So thank you. And we will catch you next week, Ghouls and Goblins.